Good morning. I'm Angelo Castro III.
I'm Angela, and we are the Castros.
We bring you the news.
And the views that make you think.
Sometimes we agree.
Sometimes we don't.
This is News and Views.
And here are today's headlines.
A powerful magnitude 6.9 earthquake shook Cebu and nearby provinces last night. At least 20 people have been reported dead as rescue and search operations continue.
The volcano records a brief eruption, but authorities say Alert Level 1 remains in effect.
Allies of former President Duterte are pushing for his temporary release and eventual house arrest.
The Senate Blue Ribbon Committee will invite resigned Congressman Zaldi Co and former House Speaker Martin Romualdez to its next hearing.
First in the news, at least 20 people have been reported dead following a powerful magnitude 6.9 earthquake that shook Cebu and nearby provinces last night. Cebu province is now on state of calamity. Here's the report.
At least 20 people have been confirmed dead following the magnitude 6.9 earthquake that struck Cebu last night. In Bogo City, bodies continue to arrive, many of them pulled from the rubble. The bodies are lined up outside the hospital as search and rescue teams work non-stop. Many were unable to escape since the earthquake struck at night while most residents were sleeping. Among the casualties are mothers and children. Authorities continue their relentless search and rescue operations. Officials fear that the death toll will climb in the coming hours. Victims from other towns in northern Cebu are also being brought here. Apart from Bogo City, the quake also caused severe damage in San Remigio, Daan Bantayan, and Bantayan Island. There were cracked roads and giant boulders blocking major highways, making clearing operations difficult. Authorities have placed Bogo City and other severely affected municipalities in Cebu under a state of calamity. The strong quake also felt in nearby provinces. In Palolete, families rushed out of their homes as power lines swayed dangerously. In Calbayog City, Samar, residents described the ground shaking violently at around 10 p.m. In Iloilo City, people were seen running out of buildings in panic as the tremor struck.
And now let's talk to FIVOX Director Teresito Bacolcol. Can you hear us okay, Director?
Yeah, yes ma'am, I can hear you loud and clear.
Alright, so hingi po kami ng update. Ano po ba ang nangyari dito sa Cebu, yung cause po ng earthquake na ito?
Okay, so last night we have a magnitude 6.9 event, and this is considered as a shallow earthquake kasi po the depth is only 5 kilometers. That's the reason why it was felt in wide area, and the epicenter is 19 kilometers north, 70 east of Bogo City. And pinakamataas na intensity that was reported is intensity 7, which is in Bogo City, in Daan Bantayan, Medellin, San Remigio, and Tabuelan in Cebu. And as of 6 a.m. today, we recorded 489 aftershocks. And the magnitude range would be from magnitude 1.4 to magnitude 4.8, and we would expect aftershocks to last for several days, even several weeks. And the generator of that event is an offshore active fault northeast of Cebu Island.
Director, you mentioned shallow yung what do you call this? Shallow yung pinanggagalingan ng earthquake, no?
Yes, that's right.
Ano po ang difference pag mas malalim kaysa sa shallow para lang maintindihan po ng kababayan natin?
Kapag malalim kasi, kahit mataas pa yung magnitude niya, hindi ganong maramdaman kasi the seismic waves, the seismic energy would travel pa towards the surface. At habang nagtra-travel yan, nare-reduce yung energy niya, nagwi-weaken as it travels towards the surface. Now, in contrast, if it's shallow earthquake, mas mabilis siya makaabot sa surface at mas malakas pa yung energy niya. Hindi pa humihina. So pagdating niya sa taas, malakas pa rin.
Okay. Kaya pala yung medyong based sa mga video, no, kahit yung simbahan nasira po, Director. Director, in contrast po, may naapektuhan pa po ng ibang lugar in terms of Kasi sinabi niya magnitude 6.9, no? So, in other words, do we expect, let me rephrase, do we expect more aftershocks to come in the coming days?
Yes, we would expect aftershocks in the next few days or even next few weeks. Pero habang tumatagal naman, humingi na yung aftershocks natin, humingi na yung strength, and nagdi-decrease yung number.
Okay, so can we clarify this, that you mentioned this is from an active fault? Is that true?
Yes, that's right. This is an active fault.
Okay.
Kasi it's only an active fault that could generate an earthquake.
Yes.
And nasa dagat po. That's the reason why last night, nagpalabas po tayo ng tsunami information. Kasi po nasa dagat, and based on our modeling, less than 1 meter yung tsunami waves.
Pero meron na po ba tayong naitalang ganitong klase ng paglindol dyan sa area even before pa?
This is the strongest earthquake in this part of Cebu, but in this part of Visayas, meron na po tayong na-record at least 8 significant earthquakes with magnitudes ranging from magnitude 5.0 to magnitude 7.2. Yung magnitude 7.2 happened last October 2013. Ito yung North Bohol earthquake, and it affected Cebu.
Okay. So dahil po ito ay isang active fault, are we going to be expecting more areas to be affected by this earthquake?
Yes, that's the reason why yung nakita natin yung intensity 7 is in, of course, yung pinakamalapit sa epicenter. But widespread po yung shaking, umaabot ng it was felt as far as Sorsogon, and it was felt as far also in the south. It was felt as far as Zamboanga del Norte and Misamis Oriental.
Director, given yung aftershocks will continue pa, ano po recommendation ng PHIVOLCS with regards to is it safe for most of the residents who live in apartment buildings to go back to their homes, or wag na muna?
Well, people should be cautious of the structures that are visibly weakened or having signs of damage as a result of the magnitude 6.9 earthquake last night. So, if meron silang na-notice na visible cracks or visible damage, it is best to contact the concerned municipal or city engineering office for inspection and advice. Kung hindi man ito totally nasira during the main shock, kung may damage na, baka totally mag-collapse to during a strong aftershock. So, wag muna sila pumasok, consult muna sila ng their municipal or city engineers.
Okay. So, meron din po ba tayong tsunami warning?
Yes po, naglabas po tayo ng tsunami advisory last night. And ang sinasabi natin, the waves were expected to arrive between 9:59 p.m. to 11:20 p.m. And since wala naman pong nangyari, 2 hours after the end time, yun yung SOP namin, 2 hours after the end time, which is 11:20, ililift na namin yung, or ika-cancel namin yung tsunami advisory, which we did at 1:20 a.m. kanina.
You mentioned earlier also, Director, na ito yung pinakamalakas in our history ngayon sa Cebu. Pero may mga naitala naman po ng mga iba pang pagyanig o earthquake even before pa, pero hindi lang po ganito kalakas. Tama po ba?
Yes, that's right. Magnitude 5.0. Meron tayo from time to time, since may mga active faults dito, meron tayong mga mahina paglindol. But again, in recent memory, this is the strongest in this part of Cebu.
Director, for context lang, no, para may comparison lang tayo. Ano po yung earthquake natin noong was it 92 or 91? Ano po yung magnitude noon?
1990, it's magnitude 7.8.
Malakas din talaga.
Pero Director, also nagkasabay din po kasi yung nagkaroon ng eruption naman sa Taal, ano. I know if you can correct me if I'm right or wrong. Wala naman po itong connection dahil yung isa volcanic eruption, ito naman pong sa Cebu ay tectonic.
Tama po kayo, wala po silang connection, and nagkataon lang kasi we have 24 active volcanoes, and we have 185 active faults, and there's always this possibility na sabay-sabay ang gagalaw, pero wala po silang hindi po sila konektado sa isa't isa.
So sa ngayon po, no, para mabigyan lang po tayo ng bigger picture here, ilan po ngayon yung mga active fault that we are monitoring as of the moment?
We have mapped around 185 active faults, and these are spread all over the country. And these are all capable of generating light to moderate to even major earthquakes. When we say major earthquakes, magnitude 7 and above. And sometimes pwede pong mag-generate ng magnitude 8 event. Ito yung tinatawag natin na great earthquakes.
Ito ba, Director, kasama dito yung West Valley Fault?
Yes, kasama po dito yung West Valley Fault.
Alright, sige po, paalala na lang po sa ating mga kababayan regarding this, of course, yung mga dapat nilang gawin kapag sila po ay nakaka-experience po nitong mga pagyanig.
Okay, so again, communities should prepare for aftershocks. And in case of another strongly felt earthquake, it is recommended that people would they have to protect themselves by doing the drop, cover, and hold. And yung mga sa bahay and sa mga opisina, heavy furniture and appliances should dapat nakastrap yan to the walls, and hanging objects should be securely fastened to prevent this from causing injuries.
Alright.
And again, kapag may damage sila nakita, wag muna pumasok, consult muna sila ng kanilang municipal or city engineers.
Okay, we will continue to get in touch with you. For the meantime, maraming salamat po sa inyong oras sa FIVOX Director Teresito Bacolcol.
Maraming salamat din po.
And I think it's also better for our kababayan sa Cebu also na sa may Visayas na malapit sa coastal air, so stay away from it dahil nga di natin alam kung ano pa yung
I remember yung nag-declare ng yung tsunami warning last night pero rinitrack nila after door, which was confirmed.
Diba? It's better to be safe than sorry. Alright, at this point, let's check the latest situation on the ground. We have Dale Israel of One News Cebu joining us live over the phone from Cebu Province. Dale, tell us what's happening there.
Yes, mayong buntag, Angela and Angelo. Right now, we just received this situational report from the Provincial Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Office. As of 8 a.m. ngayon ay nasa 61 na ang kanilang kinumpirma na namatay sa paglindol kagabi, and all levels ngayon in all municipalities ay walang pasok. And as of this morning also, the provincial board has also declared a state of calamity in the entire province. And reported casualties, yun nga 61, yung na-confirm nila, and number of individuals na injured naman ay nasa 28, at least 28 yung na-confirm na individuals. Ang mga namatay na sa karamihan ay nasa Bugo City, Midilian at San Remigio. Kasama yung isang BFP personnel at 3 PCG personnel at isang bata yung sa San Remigio.
Yeah.
Kasi yung namatay sila when the local complex collapsed due to the earthquake. Sa ano naman, sa Bugo City ay hindi pa rin passable yung ilang daan patungong Bugo kasi may mga large boulders daw ang nakatabon sa mga highways patungong Bugo City. Pero yung may mga bridge din na collapse. I mean mga church din na collapse, kagaya ng sa Daan Bantayan, yung Archdiocesan Shrine of Santa Rosa de Lima.
Right.
It was totally damaged. Pati rin ang may mga severely damaged na mga church structures sa San Isidro Labrador Parish sa Tabogon, pati ang doon din sa Bugo City may damage din. And sa Bantayan Island naman, wala pang mga assessment, pero ang naiulat lang ay ang damage doon sa church ng St. Peter and Paul or St. Peter the Apostle Church doon sa Bantayan Island.
Right.
Dale,
Angela?
Yeah, Dale, 61 dead, no? Pero how many people are reported missing? Kasi usually, yung missing na yan, it can translate to more casualties. Well, sana hindi, no? But may ulat na ba tayo about that, Dale?
Wala pang naiulat yung PDRRMO dito sa Cebu City kung how many were still are still missing. Pero we'll get that information in the next situational report they will be giving out mga 11 or 12 noon today.
Yung sa complex, Dale, I understand kasi yung kasama yung BFP, yung nagbabasketball sila. No? But aside from that report, saan karamihan nang galing ang mga casualties? Were these from buildings, apartment complexes?
Most of the deaths are ang sabi dito sa disaster PDRRMO uh, nas yung hindi lang sinabi kung saan galing pero what they mentioned here is nasan yung mga patay. Usually
Right,
nas 27 yung sa Bugo. Nandun na sa Bago Provincial Hospital.
Madami sa
Nakuha.
Bugo, Madami doon.
Tapos sa Midillian may 10.
Oo.
Nasa Gibitngil Island, yung parang tourist island yun. Tatlo sa Gibitngil, isa sa Curva at tatlo naman sa Curva Norte. Sa San Romeo, yun nga, yung may bata na doon sa Barangay Look. Ang official nila is 22 yung namatay.
Okay.
And if I'm not mistaken, Dale, because it occurred late in the evening, wala daw masyado, of course, walang nasa eskwelahan, walang nasa mga building offices at that time.
Yes, yan yung mabuti na lang walang pasok. Pero most of those who are evacuated at the buildings kasi is the ones nga nag-work sa IT Park, yung sa Cebu Cebu IT
BPO.
Park dito sa Cebu City kasi
yeah.
most of them working at the BPOs.
Right.
So nasa work sila tapos maraming tao ang in-evacuate doon sa Cebu dito sa Cebu City,
Alright.
Cebu IT Park kagabi. Hinintay na lang yung assessment at most of them are back on their offices already. As of now, may assessment yung Cebu City Engineering Office at pag clear na yung building ay okay na sila makabalik sa kanilang office.
Tanong
Most
ko
of
lang,
them wala pala pang pasok din.
right. What about the power lines dyan sa affected areas?
Sa power lines, wala, total blackout pa rin sa several municipalities. This is the list: Asturias, the city of Bogo, total blackout; Carmen, Catbon, Daan Bantayan, San Remigio, Sogod, Tabuelan at Tuburan. Total blackout yan. Pati telecommunications interruption din. Down ang communication, internet and mobile network sa city of Bogo, Daan Bantayan at San Remigio.
Of course, Dale, it just happened last night, so very scarce pa yung reports, except yung mga casualties, no? Pero can you paint us a picture of what you've seen in terms of damage? How massive is this damage, and ano yung experience mo when this happened?
Well, I was about to go to sleep last night, mga 9:59 p.m. yung first shaking talaga. Dito sa Cebu City, wala medyong damage. Dito sa bahay namin, may nabasag na mga glasses lang.
Yes.
Yung nakapatong na mga glasses. So, the shaking was so intense na nabasag yung mga nakapatong lang na mga glasses. And I was on the second floor sa bahay, so malakas yung shaking din. And right here in Cebu City, yung may night market, doon sa Colon Street, may mga lumang building. Yung may mga tipak ng mga building sa Colon Street na nahulog. Tapos yung parang yung mga tao doon sa night market sa ibaba ay natamaan yung walang natamaan na tao pero yung mga paninda natamaan yung mga building.
And Dale, 20 seconds, ilan seconds? 20 seconds, correct ba ang tinagal daw ng earthquake?
Tama. Sabi ko nga parang hindi titigil yung shaking kasi
matagal yun 20 seconds.
Oo. Akala ko hindi na ba ito titigil yung shaking. I was scared for everyone else kasi parang malakas yung shaking tapos hindi pa titigil.
Right.
Oo.
Dale, I was wondering, I understand relief food packs are now being distributed as per Governor Baricuatro. Pero nasaan ngayon yung mga affected families na yon at ilan ba tong mga affected individuals or families?
Yung mga stranded, sinabi dito na ang yung mga stranded ay most of them are in Carmen and Consolacion. So there are around 134 individuals in Carmen. Nasa temporary shelter sila ng Carmen Town. Sa Consolacion, may 80 na mga individuals from Barangay Pitogo now sheltered at the Consolacion Evacuation Center. Yun lang yung stranded individuals ng PDRMO.
Okay, and then ngayon ba meron ba tayong initial report o initial assessment for the reported damage sa infrastructure?
Sa infrastructure naman, sa Asturias, yung Delphin Street, may minor asphalt overlay damage, may surface cracks ng road doon. Sa Danbantayan, yung Barangay Poblacion is not passable. Yung Midilien, Bangon Bridge in Poblacion is damaged, but now, as of 3 a.m., passable na siya. Sa San Remeo, the Lambusan and Luke bridges are totally damaged. So, not passable yung sa San Remeo. Sa Sugod, Bourbon Bridge ay na-damage din. Pati yung Sugod, Tabunok Bridge and Likit Gym, Agnaya Wharf in Sugod is now fully passable din.
Right.
Pero na-damage siya kagabi. So, Tabogon, sa Laghanging Bridge is not passable. Sa Tuburan, Barangay Pulat and Bagasawe Bridge is not passable. But it's possible also for light vehicles lang, not possible for heavy vehicles. Yung Langoyon Bridge and Fortaleza Bridge sa Tuburan.
Right.
Sa Midillian naman, Lagusungan and Bangon Bridge, hindi pa rin. Totally damaged yung bridges na Lagusungan at Bangon. Sa Bugo, cracks and damage are visible on the highway in Barangay Pandan, Bugo City, just outside Bugo Central School. Pati yung may damage din ang yung Bugo City Hall.
Oo. Dale, last na on my end, nabanggit mo nga kanina, there are several areas ngayon dyan sa inyo na total blackout, wala pa rin power connection. I was wondering, yung mga areas na yun, meron ba mga ospital doon? Paano kasi yung mga ospital?
Mostly yung from what I know na yung mga district hospitals ng Cebu province ay may mga sariling generators yan.
Okay.
At they're equipped with generators, so they just need probably as of now they would need gasoline, more gasoline or diesel to power up the generators.
Okay. All right. We will continue to get in touch with you. Mag-iingat ka dyan. Thank you so much, Dale Israel of One News Cebu.
All right, Taal volcano recorded a brief eruption early Wednesday, but authorities say alert level 1 remains in effect. PHIVOLCS reported the eruption lasted from 1:57 to 2:15 a.m. with a weak plume rising 500 meters and drifting southwest. Recent monitoring also noted 2 volcanic earthquakes. Experts warned that sudden steam-driven blasts, ashfall, and toxic gas emissions remain possible. So much are happening. Taal, sumabog, may earthquake sa Cebu. Sabi, may nagpo-post na mga meme, nagagalit na daw ang Diyos. Okay. Stay safe lang everyone, and always stay alert.
All right, we'll be back with more stories after the break. Keep it here on One News. Good morning. You're still watching News and Views here on One News.
Allies of former President Rodrigo Duterte are pushing for his temporary release and eventual house arrest, citing concerns over his health. But critics warn the move may be a ploy to stall his trial for crimes against humanity. Here's the report.
Former President Rodrigo Duterte's camp submitted new medical records to the International Criminal Court to prove his cognitive impairment. But the camp of victims to his drug war believes this to be just another alibi to keep the case from moving forward.
Yung timing, number one, ng mga submissions ng defense, parang suspectioso. If President Duterte, the former president, had been unfit for trial from the very beginning, as his attorney says, then why raise it 5 months after he was arrested? Right on the brink, on the eve of the hearing, confirmation of charges hearing. Second, it's one pleading, one request after the other.
Former Senator Sonny Trillanes also doubts Digong is unwell to stand trial. He also questioned if there is truth to Vice President Sara Duterte's claim that the former president was recently found unconscious while in detention. Trillanes insists the ICC has a competent medical team inside the facility and that any welfare check on the detainee would require his consent. Congressman Pulong Duterte had accused Trillanes of being part of the Philippine government team that supposedly recently visited his father.
Nakuha natin na impormasyon sa ICC na wala pong nangyayaring bisita kay Duterte nang hindi niya pinapayagan. So outside the lawyer at yung mga pamilya niya ay wala hong nangyayaring gano'n. Kaya lahat po ito ay malaking kalokohan at drama nung kampo ng mga Duterte. Gusto nilang tawaan, gusto nilang mag-create ng duda at kung anumang dahilan para mabigyan ng interim release si Duterte.
Congressman Pulong has pointed to a photograph of Trillanes while in The Hague that had a caption, "Duterte is still inside the ICC's detention facility." But the former senator called this as yet another false information from the Duterte camp.
Konteksto nun, di ba, naglabas ng fake news yung mga Duterte. Kasama na si Kitty Duterte na nag-grant na raw yung interim release. So kaya ako nag-post ng ganon. Kasi naitanong ko dun sa mga kaugnayan natin kung totoo ba yun, sabi nila hindi. Kaya sinabi ko, hindi totoo na nasa loob pa rin siya.
Trillanes also claimed that based on information he gathered as an interested party in the Duterte case, the ICC's arrest warrants against Senators Bato de la Rosa and Bongo are coming. The arrests, according to Trillanes, could come next year with the two charged as principals.
Sila yung integral dun sa war on drugs ni Duterte. So si Duterte taga-utos, si Bato taga-enforce sa PNP, si Bongo taga-distribute ng pera.
Meantime, Trillanes likewise alleged that there were active groups that had wanted to hijack the September 21 rallies to bring back the Dutertes to power. Back to the ICC, the Office of the Prosecutor maintained that there are potential risks in granting Duterte temporary freedom. In a publicly redacted document, the prosecutor wrote, quote, "The prosecution has demonstrated through multiple filings that Mr. Duterte, if granted interim release, would be a flight risk, is likely to interfere with the proceedings, and may commit further crimes." It also pointed to the defense unnecessarily delaying proceedings through 4-1, waiting until 5 months after Duterte's initial appearance to file its challenge regarding his fitness to stand trial. Back at the Philippine Senate, a caucus was held on Tuesday afternoon to discuss the resolution by the minority bloc, calling for Duterte to be placed under house arrest here. Known Duterte ally, Senator Robin Padilla defended the measure by expressing his immense concern for the former president's health condition.
Kasi meron na pong matinding sakit si Tatay Digong. Sa kasalukuyan po, siya po ay meron ng tinatawag nating early signs of dementia.
Now, former presidential spokesperson Attorney Harry Roque insisted that former President Rodrigo Duterte's health condition is not a gimmick. He said it was the ICC that postponed the confirmation of charges based on expert findings, not speculation. This was his response to former Senator Sonny Trillanes, who earlier claimed Duterte's alleged decline in health was merely a tactic by his camp. Roque also refuted Trillanes' statement that he was able to enter the ICC.
And that's it.
Ako unang-una maghuhurbintag.
All right, let's get some insights from Attorney Nery Colmenares, counsel for the victims. Attorney, thank you very much for joining us here on our program.
Hi. Thank you, Angela Angelo, for inviting me.
All right. Of course, we've all heard yung mga reports saying that the camp of the former president is asking for parang maging maawa na lang kayo because he has early signs of dementia and therefore a house arrest would do him good back here in the Philippines. What can you say po with regards to that?
Well, the medical fitness, kasi they're claiming that he is unfit for trial. I stated so many times, this is really premature because there's no trial yet.
Right.
What we are now merely on the stage of confirmation of charges. The confirmation of charges may result either in one, not the confirmation of charges, and therefore there is no trial. And second, of course, that the charges are confirmed, so there's a trial. So for us, this is just a delaying tactic in the sense that whether or not it's true that he became unconscious or that he has early stages of dementia, it's not an issue in the confirmation of charges. So, but basically, we've understood and we agree with the prosecutor that the actions of the defense of President Duterte is merely to delay the trial. The reason behind that is they know, President Duterte knows that if a trial ensues, if there is a trial, he has no evidence whatsoever that can be presented to the court that will really prove that he has nothing to do with the drug war and the EJ case. After all, he practically ruled the country using his statements to kill during the drug war. So kung wala na siyang ebidensyang mai-submit, then I'm sure he knows that he will be convicted. Therefore, the only legal tactic now is to delay the trial and if possible, have an interim release.
And attorney, by saying that he has early signs of dementia, is this the way of the defense by putting it on record that he does not recall certain events para pag tinawag sa stansya, pwede nilang labanan ito?
Well, that's actually a good point, Angelo. So yeah, maybe they can say that he couldn't remember, but that is not the evidence that's going to be presented in the ICC. In fact, he is not even expected to be presented as a witness. There is a right against self-incrimination.
Okay. Right.
So the evidence of the prosecutor would be the documents, the orders, the TV public statements, and so on. The testimony of Las Cañas maybe, or Garma, or so many things. Duterte will not be presented in the ICC. So there's really no relevance of whether he can remember the event or not. Otherwise, anybody who is accused in the Philippines, even the flood control projects, they will say, I don't remember it. And then he goes scot-free, right?
Exactly.
So, no, that's not it. The prosecutor will present evidence other than the testimony of the accused.
Now, attorney, I was wondering if, would you know kung meron na po ba before na precedent, something like this happened before in the ICC na ganito yung defense nila.
Humanitarian.
Oo, na kunyari, not kunyari, but yung sinasabi nila na hindi nila naaalala.
Yung humanitarian will not be a defense sa trial, sa conviction. It can be used for interim release. Ang sabihin nila, pwede ba i-release muna? But not to i-acquit nyo ako kasi yung awa naman kayo. No. Maraming nakakulong sa Pilipinas, Angela, Angelo, na cancer nga eh. Ayaw palabasin. Nung panahon nila, President Duterte, there were cases, presidente siya noon, when we asked for the executive to really allow certain prisoners to have even a medical checkup. In fact, meron pang ang baby na namatay dati sa kulungan dahil kinulong yung nanay.
Yes.
No? So, now they're claiming this as a major issue sa kanila na parang no-violate ang human rights nila. When in fact, during their term, they never cared at all for the welfare of the prisoners in the Philippines. So I don't think they'll use humanitarian as a defense. And even if they will use it, that will not matter in the court. The court will decide on the basis of evidence and convict or acquit Duterte on the basis of the evidence.
Well, the question
presented.
now, attorneys, everyone wants to know, when do you think this will go to trial? And will this go to trial?
Yun nga ang problema. We don't know when it will go to trial because just the mere confirmation of charges is being delayed.
Yeah.
All these things, they raised this issue, disqualification of the prosecutor, disqualification of the judges, then interim release, then they took back the request for interim release, and then they reiterate again interim release, and so on and so forth. Now it's medical, they want to litigate the medical condition of the president before the confirmation of hearing. And I said, why litigate it now? It's an issue of whether he's fit or unfit for trial. So wait for the trial. If the charges are confirmed and as a trial is ordered by the court, then you can raise it there, but not during the confirmation of charges. That is really disadvantageous to the families of the victims, Angelo and Angela. Why? ang kaanak nila namatay
Yeah.
noong 2016, 2017. Until now, it's just confirmation of charges stage.
Right.
2025 na. Postponed pa. So, really, at least si Duterte, he is alive medically, ma-check siya, his children can visit him. The families of the victims, yung anak nila forever nang wala yan. Yung magulang nila, wala na yan. So, where is justice here? If justice is given to him because he claims to have dementia and he couldn't remember, while those children and the mothers and the parents were pleading for their lives. And yet, President Duterte's police executed them
Right.
despite their claim na maawa naman kayo sa akin.
Well, we don't have much time, but meron na po ako very quick question sa inyo, attorney. Yung sinasabi po ni former presidential spokesperson Harry Roque na itong sinasabing term na indirect, anong tawag doon? Indirect conspirator. Yan, o sabi niya first perpetrator rather. Sabi niya ay ito yung first time lang narinig, wala naman daw siya narinig na ganito. And can you also say or tell us about yung mga sinasabi ng inhumane yung ginagawa kay Pangulong Rodrigo Duterte sa ICC?
Indirect perpetrator is in the rules of the ICC. It's in the Rome Statute. These are for people who did not really pull the trigger but ordered it. So the direct perpetrator, of course, is the policeman who shot the
Right.
victim, right? The one who ordered or facilitated it is an indirect perpetrator. So yeah, is this inhumane? I don't see any inhumaneness in the cases filed against him. You file a case, the families of the victims filed a case because they were deprived of justice during the term of President Duterte.
Yeah.
Filed it in the ICC, and the ICC is looking whether or not to have a trial here. I don't see anything inhumane here. In fact, thousands of Filipinos were imprisoned by Duterte, many without charges. And until now, they have to suffer all this, the vagaries of being in prison. So I don't see what's happening to Duterte is happening to thousands of other Filipinos, especially the poor who are languishing in prisons in the Philippines
Right.
today.
Okay.
Well, thank you for that, Attorney Nery Colmenares, Counsel for the Victims, for joining us today on our show.
Maraming salamat po.
Thank you. Maraming salamat po.
Now, in other news, it's not just flood control projects turning out to be ghost projects. The Agriculture Department has uncovered ghost farm-to-market road projects in its audit. Here's the report.
The Agriculture Department has discovered 9 ghost farm-to-market road projects in its latest audit. Assistant Secretary Arnel de Mesa told The Big Story, 7 of these are in Davao Occidental while 2 are in Lanao del Sur. The projects were funded between 2021 and 2023, but many were either left incomplete or non-existent. The audit also found some projects were already reported as completed, but on-site checks showed otherwise.
Yung iba dyan ay reported completed din ng DPWH, but to our account ay hindi pa naman tapos. So, but yung ghost project talaga, yung 9 na, and this 9 ay out of the 4,700 projects. So that represents very minimal amount, about 0.01% of the total number.
De Mesa clarified, however, that the agency's hands are tied when it comes to these projects.
Ang role ng DA talaga is to identify and validate those proposed projects, and the implementation really are with the Department of Public Works. Based on the records, wala doon sa 15 identified by the President.
Meanwhile, the DA is set to receive almost 40 billion pesos in realigned funds from flood control projects. The agency stressed the allocation is crucial in modernizing facilities, improving distribution, and providing resilience for Filipino farmers.
This will be allocated sa ating mga cold storage facilities and projects dito sa ating post-harvest facilities, sa mga farm-to-market roads, and other projects. Meron din tayong mga assistance to farmers, especially yung naapektuhan ng mga kalamidad.
Well, let's get some insights from Leonardo Montemayor, Chairman of the Federation of Free Farmers. Sir, thank you for joining us.
Nakamute po kayo.
Nakamute pa po.
Let's try that again. Can you hear us okay now?
Yes. Sir.
Perfect.
Good morning.
Good morning. Well, sir, ayan, nagsimula tayo sa flood control projects na may mga ghosts. Ngayon, may farm-to-market road na ghost projects daw. Anong comment niyo po dito?
Wini-welcome po namin yung initiative ni Secretary Laurel ng DA na magdaos ng comprehensive audit ng mga farm-to-market roads. Ito po kasi yung mga FMRs, funded po ito ng Department of Agriculture. Ang DA po ang nag-identify at saka nagre-recommend ng mga roads na gagawin po ng Department of Public Works and Highways. So, it's possible itong na-discover po na siyam na ghost or substandard or incomplete FMRs in several provinces in Mindanao are just the tip of the iceberg.
Yes.
Alam po ninyo, since 2019, yung pong mga iba't ibang mga farmers at saka fisherfolk organizations, kabilang na po dyan ang aking samahan, Federation of Free Farmers, together with the Network of Agriculture and Fishery Councils nationwide. Matagal na po kaming humingi sa Department of Agriculture ng listahan ng lahat po ng mga DA-funded projects, including farm-to-market roads, at humihiling po kami ng rasonableng budget naman po para magkaroon po ng kakayahan ang mga farmer representatives na mapuntahan po itong actual sites ng nakalista po ng FMR. So far po, masyado pong matipid. Ika nga, ang DA po sa pagbigay po ng listahan at pati na rin po sa corresponding budgetary support. Kaya very limited po nagagawa namin. But siguro kung madagdagan po talaga hindi lang po ng budget, kung hindi mabigyan po kami ng complete listing of all these FMRs, we will be in a better position as well as a DA to have a more complete picture of the status of the completion or non-completion of these FMRs.
Okay, sir, kasi sabi nga nila dito sa Mindanao lang ito initial report lang ito. Is this something new na sa inyo pong organisasyon? I mean, na naririnig sa inyong samahan na may ganitong klaseng korupsyon? Or may mga alam na rin po kayo prior to this na lumabas?
Kung may may nagsusumbong.
Sa personal experience ko kasi, Angelo, tsaka Angela, I was a congressman, for example, in the year 2010, 2019, tsaka up to 2010.
Right.
There was one instance when I was approached by, I suppose, contractor yun. Sabi niya, sige, dun sa allocation mo for hard infra, in this case, FMRs, kami nang bahala sa, you just tell us where this FMR should be built. Sabi na, kami nang bahala. Gagawa kami ng program of work. Kami na maglalakad niyan sa DA, I suppose, saka sa DPWH. And then, ang hidden message was, may ibibigay din sa akin. Of course, I rejected that proposal. So, noon pa lamang, at that time, napakalit po yung yung hard infra allocation ng bawat congressman. I think it was just about 10 million a year. But ngayon, nasa na po, mas malaking amounts po yan. At po ang plano yata ng kontraktor, regraveling. Hindi pa po cementing. So, alam mo, pwedeng dayain yung regraveling.
Yes,
Palalabasin nila ang deliver na truckloads of gravel is let's say 10 truckloads, pero actual po nadadalhin sa barangay isang truckload lang. So ititipid po nila yung siyam.
Ano po nangyari?
As I said, based on that experience in the past,
right.
I would not be surprised kung baka lalo pong lumaki ngayon.
Mas lumala pa.
Ano po nangyari po sa mga nag-attempt po magsuhol sa inyo, sir?
Hindi ko nga po tinanggap yan
I mean, nakasuhol po ba sila o naimbestigahan sila?
At saka nangyari po sa akin noon, Angelo, dahil I was in the opposition, I was in the minority party, hindi ako nililisan ng budget for any of the small infrastructure projects that I had recommended. So, nasiro ako noon
Oo, nako. Magandang kwentuhan po yan.
Gusto ko dugtungan to. Sige, schedule natin to ulit.
Yes, we don't have much time anymore, pero hopefully you're still available po in the next coming days para po mas mapalawak po natin itong discussion nito.
Opo, at saka, by the way, it's not just FMRs that have to be looked at. Pati po itong mga ibang mga DA-funded activities like fertilizer.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Baka hindi pa tayong natututo doon sa nangyari pa noon.
Yung fertilizer.
Panahon ni Jok Volante, Napoles. May mga kwento-kwento po kung natatanggap about issues about fertilizer, hybrid seeds, etc. So, sana po Secretary Laurel will come up with a much more comprehensive study of all of these things.
Sige po,
definitely we will right away.
Maraming salamat po sa inyong oras, Leonardo Montemayor, Chairman of the Federation of Free Farmers.
Wala pong anuman. Thank you.
If we had more time, we would want to stretch it because very interesting tong topic because I wanted to ask about the fertilizer and all this agriculture has always been
corruption scheme.
Agriculture has always been a milking cow for ibang mga corrupt before. Panahon nila nga binanggit nga ni Jok Volante, di ba?
And eto pa ang presidente natin, dating agriculture secretary ng kanyang, di ba, kanyang gabi.
Diba lang, don't worry, we'll get back to that, but don't go away because we're not done yet. Stay with us. Welcome back. You're still watching News and Views here on One News. The Catholic Educational Association of the Philippines is urging the government to expand its scholarship program for private institutions amid declining enrollment. Representing 1,500 schools nationwide, the group said many remain financially unstable after the pandemic reduced private school enrollment from 4.3 million to just 1.4 million. CEAP noted that private schools, which depend mainly on tuition fees, continue to lose students to government institutions offering free education. It is also calling for more flexibility in tuition adjustments and decisions on class suspensions.
Now, to talk more about this, we are joined by COCOPEA's legal counsel, Attorney Joseph Noel Estrada. Good morning and thanks for joining us again.
Good morning, Angela and Angelo at sa inyo mga taga-subaybay at taga-panood. Maganda umaga po.
Okay, so do you agree po na kailangan natin na-expand ng government po, no, more specifically, ang scholarship para po sa mga private schools?
Yes, certainly yung ating existing na education service contracting and senior high school vouchers, sana po ito ay ma-extend, ma-expand no, sa ating kinder to grade 6 students. No? Kasi yan na lang ang walang subsidy from the government. Ironically, meron tayong free college education, meron tayong voucher for senior high at junior high. Pero I think yung pinaka-importante no, sa elementary students, dun pa tayo walang subsidy. So our position, of course, we are, CEAP is a member of COCOPEA. Our position has been to expand government subsidy programs to
Kaya lang, sir, na nagkakaroon din ng corruption. I remember, di ba, yung mga ghost students naman dyan sa mga voucher program?
Yes, tama po 'yun. At wala namang sistema na perfect, no? But we can say na ito po ay napakaliit po, no? Wala pang 1% yung sinasabi na merong mga anomalya na binabanggit, no? Yung sinabi ng mga students na unaccounted for. Pero actually yun ang term na ginagamit ng PAC, no? Unaccounted students. They're not using ghost students kasi parang I think kung meron mang ganung ghost students, that's very rare and isolated case kasi may yung mga estudyante may mga learner reference numbers yan na binibigay ng Department of Education.
For each student,
diba? Estudyante yon. Ang problem is hindi sila nakalipat sa private school, no, to receive the voucher at siguro nanatili sa DepEd pero nakatanggap ng subsidy yung eskwelahan at hindi binalik. That's the story behind that. Pero like we're always saying, dapat hindi ma-generalize yung program. Napakagandang programa ng gobyerno ito. Sana po ay wag namang mabahiran at maging dahilan pa na hindi na ituloy, no? Because this is really working for us in the education sector.
Well, do you think this will help also increase the enrollment kung sakasakaling ma-expand, no? Yung sinasabi po natin na voucher program ng gobyerno sa mga private school, will this increase the enrollment as well sa mga private schools?
Yes, certainly, no, kasi marami tayong mga IEL learners na tinatawag. Ibig sabihin yung hindi na magkasya sa public schools, no.
That's true.
Ay pagkakataon sila na makalipat sa isang private school through funding ng government. Napakaliit din ng participation ng private schools sa overall enrollment in elementary. It's about time, no? Kasi 9% lang, no, of the enrollment in elementary ang nasa mga private schools natin. At malaking bagay ito. And not only that, it's very cost efficient. Remember, merong backlog ang DepEd in terms of classrooms, so 165,000. So instead of building more classrooms, training more teachers, this will really help, no, if the private sector helps the government, no, in giving access to our students through the vouchers.
Well, actually, that's a good point, ano. Ngayon kasi kulang talaga tayo ng mga classrooms. And that's a good point
parang
also
decongestion.
Oo, no, ma-decongest yung public tas ilagay sa private by doing the voucher program.
But do we see other reasons kung bakit yung enrollment ay bumababa aside from itong mga nababanggit?
Well, syempre marami rin talagang hindi na makapag-cope, no, with the cost of education. Kasi kahit nga libre na, syempre may mga other costs pa yan, no, baon,
transportation.
Hindi nila masustain. So, it's really declining. Kaya malaking bagay ito, malaking tulong ito, no, sa ating mga estudyante kung magkakaroon ng subsidy from the government. Actually, yung subsidy nga will not cover the entire tuition, no, maliit lang, pero marami rin tayo mga mission schools, mga private mission schools na they're willing actually to deliver the education up to the voucher amount. Ibig sabihin, hindi na rin magdadagdag yung mga estudyante. Kasi yung the subsidy is really also very small, no? Yeah.
Yun. Alright. Siguro, perhaps you can enlighten us very quickly lang na paano to masisimulan na if you want this program to expand, paano makakausap ang Department of Education?
This will require legislation. Pero I think ang pinag-uusapan ngayon, pwede itong immediately ma-implement through the GAA, no, sa pagbabudget ngayon, at least for the early stage of the subsidy for elementary. And then habulin na lang through legislation, no, within the 20th Congress because this would require a law. No?
And additional budget.
Ang budget, oo. Yung budget, I think ang kailangan dito 6 billion yun ang computation. Siguro naman doon sa mga na-realign or yung mga, di ba, from
maambunan kay paano ang DepEd.
Alright, thank you for your insights. COCOPEA's Legal Counsel, Attorney Joseph Noel Estrada, for joining us.
Maraming salamat po.
Kasi yun ang nagiging problem talaga ngayon kasi, di ba?
Yeah, alright.
Diyos
ko, sana wala namang mabahiran to ng corruption, pati ba education.
Yung voucher system, di ba?
Alam natin yan. Alright, let's move forward. Senator Ping Lacson said the Senate Blue Ribbon Committee will invite resigned Congressman Saldico and former House Speaker Martin Romualdez to its next hearing on the flood control controversy. Lacson explained that their presence is necessary to dispel perceptions that the ongoing Senate inquiry is favoring or protecting certain personalities linked to the alleged anomaly. He added that the invitation to Romualdez will be formally coursed through the current House Speaker, Faustino D. III. As for Co, Lacson acknowledged that the former Ako Bicol party list lawmaker may not attend since he is currently out of the country.
Sa susunod na pagdinig, kung magkakaroon kami ng pagdinig, papadala na namin siya ng invitation letter doon sa kanyang address. Now, alam naman natin nga sa abroad siya, so hindi yung sisipot. Pag hindi siya dumating, papadala namin ng subpoena, at pag hindi sumipot, may show cause order. Pag hindi satisfactory ang kanyang show cause order, ipapakontempt namin siya at pa-issue namin siya ng warrant of arrest.
Now, former Ilocos Sur Governor Chavit Singson is questioning why Ilocos Norte, the home province of President Marcos, was left out of the flood control scandal. Now, in an interview on The Long Take, Singson said much attention was given to Bulacan and Occidental Mindoro, calling it unfair and lacking transparency. The longtime Marcos ally denied political motives, saying the controversy simply exposes what he calls the biggest graft and corruption case to date. Singson added he had once campaigned for Marcos, believing the president would clean up the family's name.
Doon nga ako nagtataka. Dahil flood control siya ng flood control, bakit binubugbog lang Bulacan? Unahin sana ang Region 1, Ilocos Norte, Ilocos Sur, La Union, Abra, kami muna. Dahil yun ang region ni Presidente. To be transparent. Inuhuli, taka nung huli, kasi kagaling ko lang sa Rome, nanonood ako sa TV. Nung binabasa yung mga provinces, binampasa ng Ilocos Norte. So, hindi tama yun
Abangan nila yung full interview na yan sa Long Take. I think it's gonna be, it's gonna air tomorrow, if I'm not mistaken.
Alright. Sige, and that wraps up today's episode of News and Views.
Join us again tomorrow. I'm Angela Lagunsad Castro.
I'm Angelo Castro III. We are One News.
All sides, all the time.